For years, Hollywood has made dangerous people look cool. In movies about gangsters, killers, or corrupt masterminds, the villains are often shown as smart, powerful, and fearless. People end up remembering them like legends instead of seeing them for what they really are. And according to Jim Caviezel, that's part of the problem. I just want to also thank you and the American people for coming out and supporting this film. You were one of the first that addressed this with us and really helped get the word out. When we were down in Cartagena, they guys would come up, traffickers, and they would, right in front of us ask us if we wanted ninas or niños and little boys or little girls. And people think that that's not something that happens here in the United States. Well, absolutely it does. Over 300,000 children under the ages of 18 were sucked into the deepest recesses of hell. And it's disgusting that the media hasn't covered it like they should. There obviously is really good media like yourself, but others that completely ignore it. And I think people need to understand, American people are starting to understand what is actually going on and are sick and tired of it, especially with the South border. While speaking about the dark side of Hollywood, Jim explained that evil does not always show up looking scary. Sometimes it hides behind fame, success, money, and charm. That's why so many actors, writers, and celebrities can slowly get pulled into things they never expected. The industry rewards people who break rules, push limits, and chase attention at any cost. Over time, some stars lose themselves trying to fit into that world. But Jim says he tried to go the opposite direction. He tried to expose it. 4 years ago, we showed it in a theater. There was like 5 viewings, and in each viewing, they were always talking during this one part, the audience, and I thought maybe there's something wrong. I'd never seen that before, and about 1,500 people at the end, I spoke to them. Instead of letting dark roles change him, he said he held on to his faith and the innocence he had as a child. He believed that if he focused on truth instead of ego, he could avoid getting swallowed by Hollywood's darker side. He said that if people truly understood the evil hiding behind trafficking, exploitation, and corruption, they would stop ignoring it. Too many people, in his opinion, stay distracted by entertainment while terrible things happen behind closed doors. He believes the media often softens the truth, or avoids talking about uncomfortable subjects completely. You both to talk about sound and freedom, and we know that both of you are very frequently depicted in movies that affect change. They're not just entertainment. Can you tell us, Jim, what do you want this movie? How do you want it to affect our culture? All right, let's start with my own children. My wife and I adopted 3 children from China and became very well aware of the dangers that children go through globally, even through the orphanage program. Next step here is this man called me up, said, "Do you want to do something that really can light things up?" Now, I'm going to go back to the Passion of the Christ. I saw what that did to this world globally, and it was a very difficult film, and obviously we took a lot of flight putting that thing out. But it did a great amount of good, and it went against the media's narrative. This one is also part of that because it's going against what's going down at the border. I said this over and over again. If you don't have a border, a south border, you don't have a country. You buy the rules, sovereign country, you have to have borders. We don't have a southern border. It points a big light on grooming. A lot of that going on in the United States right now. Laws that are just an abortion, killing a baby 27 days after they're born. All of this is a war on our children, and the public ain't happening. Don't want this happening anymore. All of that, when we came to Washington, many of them asked me, "What can I do for you?" When once we were done talking, I said, "Well, we want to help you. We want to give you a weapon, and this is what it is." And so now we have guys like Elon Musk that are coming in helping us help. Ivanka Trump just tweeted the other day, and this is growing. It's a big movement, and it really is fighting for the survival of our country, our republic, especially for our children, that God's children are no longer for sale. That is why Jim became more outspoken over time. He started warning parents to pay closer attention, warning families not to assume the world is as safe as it once seemed. He even shared personal conversations with family members. telling them they needed to protect their children more carefully because the dangers today are very real. What makes Jim stand out is that he claims many celebrities see these problems, but stay silent out of fear. Fear of losing fame, fear of being blacklisted, fear of going against powerful people in the industry. But according to him, some stars quietly walked away from that world instead of fully giving into it. And that's the bigger message behind everything he says. Not every celebrity who enters Hollywood stays trapped there. Some eventually realize the cost of fame is too high. Some step back, reconnect with faith, family, or reality, and try to escape the pressure and corruption around them. Your book, Brave, that you've mentioned, it's being described as being both a memoir and a manifesto. Who have you written it for? Did you write it for yourself, or have you got someone in mind when you were writing it? That's a great question. I wrote it for the world. I wrote it to unwire people's thoughts. I compare the cult I grew up in to the cult of Hollywood and how it affects your mind in ways you might not be aware of. And that's wrapped up in an autobiography. And I wrote it for myself. I suppose that it benefited me in that. I worked through a lot of things. I processed a lot of emotions, and it was very hard. But, over the course of time, I realized, my father, I watched him as a leader in this cult on, wire people's minds, and I kind of know how to unwire them, and that it's really my form of public service. One celebrity that many people believe managed to escape Hollywood's darker side was Rose McGowan. Most people remember Rose from movies like Scream and Planet Terror. Back then, she looked like another rising Hollywood star headed for a huge career. But behind the scenes, her story was far more complicated. Rose once revealed that her childhood was already filled with control and fear long before she ever stepped into Hollywood. She was born into a Hollywood cult called Children of God. First went actually to a place called Hollingbourne Manor, which is somewhere in the English countryside, and restored that and lived there with a few people. And then, from there, went to Italy. They met a duke, and we wound up living on ducal estates. And your father was the head of the Italian chapter, I guess. Is that right? I guess. Yeah. Most cults or extreme religious groups, there's something in there that means that they have an appeal for people, right? Whether it's a sort of psychological mechanism that means that it's in some way seductive or intoxicating. With the family, I don't have a clear sense, or with the children of God, other than they had some hippie trappings, right? A lot of it was have fun, play music, hang out, don't be uptight, but at the same time, you're controlled. Is that more or less what it was? I would say that sounds about right. We called everybody the word for people that were not in Children of God, or the family was systemites because they believed in the system. They're not wrong. That's the whole thing. Just because it's a cult doesn't mean it has some good attributes. Like most journalists that have written about me, especially American journalists, they really feel sorry for me. They're like, oh, poor thing, she didn't grow up in America. And I'm like, woo! I'm like, given the choice, I'll take what I had. What were cult-like characteristics? Various things that made no sense to me at all. Like sit on your bed and learn how to snap your fingers all day so God will teach you to drive when you're 16. I'm like, that was something you had to do for like 8 hours. I had to snap my stupid fingers. And I was like, this is absurd. The kids were largely raised communally. All the women were called nannies. So if I say I grew up with a nanny, it sounds posh, but it was just communal raising. The education, interestingly enough, was I was reading at 2.5, like full books. It was a kind of original Maria Montessori teachings that they employed there for that. So my education, granted it had some holes. No one taught me to tie my shoes till I was 9. When I got sent to America, I realized how good the education was and had been that I had already received. When she was still a child, her father finally escaped with the children and brought them back to America. But according to Rose, leaving the cult did not mean leaving manipulation behind. Years later, she shocked people by comparing Hollywood itself to another kind of controlling system. She claimed the entertainment industry pressures celebrities to act a certain way, look a certain way, and stay silent if they want to survive. According to Rose, speaking against powerful people in Hollywood could destroy your career overnight. And unlike many stars, she refused to stay quiet. I was on that set, and I would just be seeing things, and I just like the arrogance, and I just was like, It was almost like this alarm was going off in my head, and it was like me trying to get back into me. And it was like, wake up, and I would be in, they take breaks. Be sitting there between camera setups, and it'd be like this alarm, and I was just like kind of like so zombied at that point. And I was like, wake up, wake up. You hate this. Wake up. You don't like this. Wake up, wake up. And I was like, and then, I went through a few years after that where I woke up. And when I woke up, I think, to years and years suppressed anger and very much put the exactly as you did, put it together that this was far worse than the cult I grew up in. And the thing is, movements don't happen in a vacuum. It's like now all of a sudden you wake up one day and like what? Like there has to be events and someone like really shaking the power structure from the ground. My thing I called it, I even trademarked it called C, the cultural reset. The cultural reset. I just thought not like, and I'd always thought my thing was I want to glitch the matrix. I want to disrupt the timeline somehow, some way. But I knew I had to bide my time and, oh gosh, talk about time. So is that 20 years? That decision changed everything. Her career began facing controversy after controversy. One major scandal came during the filming of Planet Terror, directed by Robert Rodriguez. Reports exploded after news came out that Rodriguez had been involved with Rose while still married. The situation became tabloid news everywhere, and the drama followed both of them for years. Like, this role, this character, and, we fell in love, much before the movie. But all of a sudden, doing the movie, not realizing that the spin doctor who controlled the media was putting all the stuff out that we were like having the trailer, and I was like, what? And that we met and fallen in love on set. And I was like, no, this is not how this whole thing went down. Interesting at all. Am I okay to name the director to Robert? This is Robert Rodriguez, who I think is phenomenal director. Most of the stories I read is that you two not met, but you two began your relationship on set. So that's it. A year before that, his separated wife and I were all sitting in my living room of my house. So no, it did not go down like that at all. Look at that. But I still, I, I mean, the oldest line in the book that, she lives in a house over here and I live over here and she's much older and we live separate lives and we work together, but that's it. I didn't realize, like the married man, every fake thing in the book. But there was some truth to it, but also not. But I also had never, I think sometimes people come to you and you're very lost. And at that point, I'd been 4.5 years on a show from was somebody else far more time than I was myself and obviously had a lifetime of stuff that I had no time to process or deal with. And then it was just survival and an elegant survival, if you will. Yes. With some cool stunts and there was I definitely like had fun moments for sure. But then I was very proud of that role. But in the middle of filming, he sold it to the only person who distributed films before. He sold it to Loser Weinstein for distribution in the middle of filming. And I was like, and then basically what happened is I'm down now going down the red carpet with this loser's arm around me, and they use that to blast the media forever. See, why, if she'd been so many years before, would she be okay with me going down the red carpet with her arm around me? Because how does that moment happen? But the bigger turning point came when Rose started openly criticizing Hollywood itself. She spoke about sexism in the industry, calling out casting systems that treated actresses more like products than people. At one point, she even exposed humiliating wardrobe instructions actresses received during auditions. Not long after making those complaints public, Rose claimed her own agent fired her. Still, she kept talking, and the more she spoke, the more isolated she seemed to become. Well, in the movies, which to the outside world perspective, I'm on the ups. Yes. Right. And then I get a call from this super producer that I'd heard about even growing up, like doing like famous shows like Dynasty and like Love, all these like big hits, right? Kind of corny, but like amazing, glamorous, this and that. And he's calling you with a job offer. Actually, someone told me last year, they said, oh, Aaron Spelling, he knew exactly what he was doing and he hated those guys in Hollywood. Spelling? Yes. Yes. Tori Spelling's father. Exactly. Yes. power billionaire. Like before there were a lot of billionaires, super producer. But he hated the Hollywood film crowd, and he specifically hated Weinstein. And I didn't know this, actually. I didn't know this, and I think this was like a chess move against them. And so he offered me a job to replace, to come into a show that had they fired the lead actress. Yes. And so that was a whole like hull blue that I didn't know anything about because I never watched the show. I'd never heard of it. Again, I'd been just in this other kind of wild world. And but I feel like the press I remember at that time, they were still trying to pit you two against each other. They did that for years. Yeah, for the year before she died. We kind of went out on this kind of tour together, and she was rad. Yes, yes. And and she got to tell her truth. She did a podcast called Let Me Be Clear, and she told her story. And it was not and the person that got her fired, the other co-star that orchestrated the whole thing, really. You understand that in Hollywood, if you are a woman and you get fired from a job, and especially twice, then you're donezo. But here's what people don't get. The way I was treated by the media, and I used to like literally cry. I would get so upset. I didn't understand like, what did I ever do to this journalist? I didn't understand like why I wouldn't read a ton of it. But you still, even if you don't really actively look, it still comes in or someone randomly tells you and I'd be like, what? Like I just used to think, seriously, I must have killed a journalist in my past life. What did I do to be portrayed this way? And it was so opposite of me who was staying at home watching Shirley Temple films and collecting 1930s Shirley Temple dolls. Then came the moment that changed Hollywood forever. Rose publicly accused Harvey Weinstein of assault years before many others were willing to speak out. According to her, powerful people in the industry already knew what was happening, but stayed silent. She claimed Weinstein had become an open secret in Hollywood, protected by fear, influence, and money. At first, many people doubted her, but over time, more and more women began sharing similar stories. Eventually, the flood of accusations against Weinstein grew so large that the entire entertainment industry was forced to pay attention. What started as whispers behind closed doors turned into one of the biggest scandals Hollywood had ever seen. Rose later said she believed speaking out damaged her career badly. She claimed she was blacklisted and pushed out of major projects after refusing to stay silent. According to Rose McGowan, once certain executives realized she was writing a book about her experiences, everything around her changed. She claimed she was suddenly being watched, followed, and pressured in ways that felt almost unbelievable. Rose said the intimidation became constant because what happened is David Boyce, Bill Clinton's lawyer, Weinstein's lawyer, Uber, passed gay marriage to the Supreme Court, Gore's lawyer, Gory Bush, and I'm telling you stuff, but others might not. One of the good guys, right? Big Democrat. That's the worst. He went to Prime Minister Ehud Barak, the former Prime Minister of Israel. Who should I hire to stop Rose McGowan? And when I say this goes up to the highest levels of power, it goes up to the highest levels of power. Black Cube, Kroll, and Pelicano, dude. And they terrorized me really intensively because they knew I was writing a book. The irony, I never intended on putting his name in my book. The book's not about him. It's using the story of what happened to me to educate people further and get to see like the true lie behind the image of Hollywood and Democrats' power structure. But I was never going to put his name in my book. It's an ugly, disgusting name. No, I love words. I love words. I love language. I don't know about you, but when I was writing a book, sometimes it feels like I had like every like the dictionary sitting on my head, and it was cause it's a lot to write a book hard and boring. Not boring what you're writing, but like you have to sit still by yourself. You're living inside your head. Oh no. People think writing is just when you're doing that. No. And I had never written a book. I'd never really done a homework assignment. My mom, when I was 15, she's like, "You never finish anything." And I was like, "Oh God, what if that's true?" On set, I have a contract. If I don't show up, I'm getting sued. I have people following me with walkie-talkies every minute of my day is managed. Yeah. So I didn't know if I really did complete things or not, but I did, shockingly. But I did it while they were flying drones around my windows every day. This is 3 years before 2017, the Weinstein news broke. I was, trailed, almost driven off the road. They sold my headlights out of my car. They placed trackers in my car. I thought I was manifesting everything in my life. Turns out my whole house was bugged. I had like that swept, like it would be like I was like exhausted when the news broke and my literary agent, Dupra Miller, Jan Miller, they're big. They're big, in fact. Weinstein was doing a movie with Trayvon Martin's family, was very sad, actually. And with Jay-Z, who also knows, and that got killed because the Weinstein, that movie never came out or got finished because of that. But Rose claimed the people connected to Harvey Weinstein had influenced reaching into politics, media, publishing, and major corporations. She spoke about powerful lawyers, executives, and wealthy figures who she believed were all tied together behind the scenes. What you're saying is he's part of a whole system, that it's not just Harvey Weinstein at all. It's like a lot of people are participating in this. Yeah. Like everybody. Yeah. Which is a cult. Yeah. Well, that was kind of the point. Exactly. So at what point do you recognize it's not just this creepy movie mogul, it's like everybody well, very quickly when I flew home, I didn't go to any of the other premieres I had at Sundance that time. I went home and I went to the management office of my managers at that time, and the head manager, they were very powerful. I said to him, what happened? And I was like, shell-shocked. And the first thing out of his mouth, God damn it, I just had an LA Times expose on him. Killed. He owes it to me not to do this. Wow. And then I was like, that's when I started figuring out everybody was in on it. Wow. So then I said, I want the LAPD. I want to talk to a criminal attorney. I want somebody to tell me what my rights are here. And of course, at that time, like if I come out and said in the press, like, please, like nothing would happen. Obviously, it wasn't the time society, certainly is not the time there. Not that it ever was. And so my old assistant, like 3 years ago, she's like, she's a lesbian. And the woman that came in that presented as working for the LAPD in a black suit, like kind of a short-haired lesbian woman, she goes, "You're an actress. You've done a nude scene. You're done." And she wasn't wrong. I knew she was right. I was like, yeah, you're right. So then I found out quickly that he was offering to anybody he'd done this to $1 million. That was his number. That was his standard offer. And you had to sign a non-disclosure agreement, which means you cannot talk to your therapist, your boyfriend, your mom, anybody in your life for the rest of your life, if you cannot tell them this monstrous thing happened. What shocked many people was her claim that her book was never even supposed to focus mainly on Weinstein. And this is 3 years, again, before the news is breaking, but they knew I was writing a book. There's so much to the story, it's exhausting in some ways, but like 4 days after knocking out Weinstein at the New York Times, I iced Roy Price, the head of Amazon Studios, by tweeting at Jeff Bezos. Why not? 1, 2, 3, 4. I had 4 points I was make. First, you won a dirty Oscar. Casey Affleck, like an actor. Ben Affleck's brother, who has been accused very credibly and I think did settlements behind the scene. I think that's what happened. Alleged violent predator? Didn't care. It doesn't matter. Roy Price, the head of this studio, I had already known from just, he was under investigation for a year before the Weinstein news broke by his own company. So you told me Jeff Bezos doesn't know who his employee is, really. He was under investigation for a year, forcefully harassing the head producer of The Man in the High Castle on Amazon, who, not that it matters, but I think is a married lesbian, by sticking his tongue or something in her ear and whispering, "Do you like it?" in the stuff like that every day. So she actually filed harassment, thing with HR, but they kept it in-house, but I read about it in the trades, but it didn't make wider news, right? So 1, you won a dirty Oscar, Jeff Bezos. 2, Roy Price, all of a sudden, he followed me one day on Twitter. It's like 2 years before the expose. I'm like, woo, the head of Amazon Studios has fired me. I've been writing a script about Children of God, the thing I grew up in. And If you've ever written anything, how hard it is to get anybody to read the damn thing. Yeah. So, we start talking on Twitter, DMing, and I'm like, I wrote a script. He's like, I would love to read it. I send it to him. 2 days later, I was like, this is amazing. I'm like, the head of a studio within 2 days read what? Huh? Then he does a huge deal with this Roy Price, head of Amazon Studios, with Woody Allen. Saves his I am at lunch with Roy Price one day at the Beverly Hills Hotel, and I just found out that Weinstein was going to go bankrupt. And if he'd truly gone bankrupt, I would have just left it there. Maybe I was thinking about them? But he didn't, 'cause Roy Price, Amazon Studios came in to save him. Turns out they bought my script to see at Weinstein's Beast to see if I had written anything about him. To Rose, it proved something she had believed for years. Hollywood was not just about movies, it was about power. What sustained me? Integrity, metal, understanding why I'm here, and knowing exactly what the timeline of my life was going to look like. I might not make it out of here alive. I mean, at some point I'm going to die too, but it might be sooner. I don't know. Power structure does not like it when you mess with them. They really, really don't. I cried about it. Makes me sad. To pre-mourn your life if it's in danger. Yeah, that makes me sad. The monster and his cronies a 20-year smear campaign globally. He bought off media. His reach was far, far broader than Hollywood. We all know that. Spent a long campaign of being, his name was a bullet to me, and his complic. These are really bad people. These are like some of the worst people on earth for real. Like they are high-level bad people professionally. It's wild. I just think, who are you? How do you sleep with yourself? How do you look at yourself in the mirror? How do you function? What is your life like inside? How are you perpetrating this to your families, your daughters, your sons? What are you leaving? You. Because you're going to have an asterisk next to your name for all time. You better be careful. I've been backlash. Shut up. You should be in jail, stupid. You lost your job. So did those women. They lost their careers. They lost their livelihoods. They lost their lives. They got hijacked. They got set on a new course that they didn't want to be on, and you got to go forth with yours. So, if your life's a little messed up, bummer, shouldn't ought to have done that. But you knew that, didn't you? They knew. And it haunts me when I think of that Matt Loire clicking under the desk that lock and the women describing that they would go like this. How dare you? How dare you? The people that head up that news organization. And that idea connects directly back to what Jim Caviezel has warned about for years. Both Rose and Jim describe an industry where truth can become dangerous. Both suggest that celebrities who challenge powerful people risk losing careers, relationships, and public support. And both claim there are forces behind the scenes working hard to protect the image of Hollywood at all costs. Another name that many people now point to is Mel Gibson. For years, Hollywood painted Mel as one of the most controversial figures in the entertainment industry. His public scandals, leaked recordings, and explosive behavior made headlines everywhere. To many people, it looked like his career was finished for good. But over time, some viewers started looking at his story differently. For me, I think evil is something that, when it comes to you, it's not necessarily going to come with a sign saying, I'm evil. It usually will come in an enticing form. And you said at one point that a big dark force didn't want us to make this film. Sure. What was the force? What was the force? It's the thing you can't see. See, I'm a believer, by the way. So, if you believe that there are big realms of good and evil, and they're slugging it out, what does the evil side want? Oh, it wants you. It wants you. People are capable of horrors, of atrocities. We're also capable of wonderful things, of good things. And we have the choice. What do we choose? And often many of us at different times choose both. To many fans, that moment became symbolic. Then, according to Mel, years later, he started realizing that some of his worst suspicions may not have been completely unfounded after all. That's why some people now believe Mel Gibson became another celebrity who escaped Hollywood instead of fully submitting to it. Like Rose McGowan and Jim Caviezel, he eventually stopped trying to fit comfortably inside the industry system. Today, we no longer see many celebrities trying to stand up against the evils in Hollywood. Why do you think that is? Let us know in the comments below.